Yo, what's going on, guys? Sorry for the lack of uploads recently. I'm trying to do better about that, and I'm trying to post videos at least once a week. But in today's video, I'm going to be telling you 5 things you definitely need to know before buying a BMW 335i. So yeah, guys, firstly, the number one thing you need to know about these cars, especially if you're looking at one you like, is the maintenance records. If for whatever reason they don't have any maintenance records, you could always find a trustworthy mechanic to do a PPI, also known as a pre-purchase inspection. And those will usually run you about $100 to $300 depending on who you go to, but they will give you a very thorough list of everything that's going on with the car, especially if there's anything wrong with it. A pre-purchase inspection will give you a great idea on what you're gonna get yourself into. And as you should with any car you're looking to buy, you need to look at it. And I do mean thoroughly. You need to look under the car for any profound leaks of either oil or coolant. You need to look under the hood and make sure that you don't see any oil debris or coolant leakage. And also a major benefit, especially with these cars, from looking underneath the hood, is you can tell if it's had any poorly installed modifications or, quite frankly, just modifications that you don't want on your car. It'll give you a good idea on what modifications you may want to swap out in the future. These cars are very attention-seeking if they haven't been maintained properly. In other words, your wallet's going to be hurting and you're just going to be sad. The main reason for people having poor maintenance histories with these cars actually isn't the parts. Most of the time, the parts for these cars are not that much more expensive than, let's say, Toyota or other Japanese car manufacturers. The main reason for people having poor maintenance history on these cars actually has to deal with the rate at which BMW charges for labor. And the bad thing is most people can do all the work necessary on these cars. And even though they've done similar work on other car brands, on BMWs, especially 335s, the lack of experience working with these cars can actually cause a chain reaction that just feels like you're throwing money into a fire. Most people that own these cars, when something breaks, they'll just replace that one thing. And then after that's fixed, another thing will go out. And then they'll fix that and another thing will go out. But typically what you can do is if one thing goes out, you can just upgrade everything all at once. At least that's what I did with my friend Malik. I took my car to his house in December of 2023, and while my car was at his house getting the single turbo kit installed, we did a multitude of maintenance items. We replaced the oil pan gasket, the valve cover and the valve cover gasket, the water pump, the thermostat, all coolant lines. We replaced some of the power steering lines and the power steering reservoir. We put in a 335D coolant expansion tank. We even did wheel speed sensors, new engine and transmission mounts, and we even did a walnut blast due to this car definitely needing one. I mean, the intake valves were disgusting. And we even detailed the subframe and the bottom of the motor so that way I can tell if this car starts leaking oil again. And I can say without a doubt, if I wouldn't have done all that at once, this car would have definitely started showing signs of failure in certain areas, especially making as much power as it does with a single turbo. Like I've said in multiple of my other videos, maintenance before mods always. Because especially if you tune a 335 that hasn't been maintained well, it's going to expose all of the weak points on this car and it's going to feel like a chain reaction. And all that's going to do is lead you to having an empty wallet and hating the car that you spent all of your hard-earned money on. But I can say, after all your maintenance is caught up, these cars are a blast to drive and they keep pulling you in for more. Especially if you add some power to them. Maybe with full bolt-ons and a tune, either off the shelf or custom. What I'm about to tell you will probably have a few people upset. The E93, also known as the hardtop convertible of these cars, have nowhere near as much aftermarket support as the E92s and E90s have. E93s most of the time are cheaper and easier to find, and they're also quite desirable because they're a hardtop convertible. But those benefits actually do come with a pretty heavy drawback. Most companies that make parts for the 335s in E90 or E92 rarely make parts for the E93. My advice to you if you're looking into an E93, before you purchase one, do your research, see what companies make what parts, and truly find out if it's what you want. I mean, you would hate to spend all your money on this car that you've wanted for a really long time, just to come to find out all these mods you want to do to it, they don't make. Which a lot of times will just leave you with having to find custom options, which usually are a lot more money and a lot bigger of a headache. So do your research first, because almost all of the parts made for these cars are geared more towards the E92s and the E90s. For example, let's say you find an E93 and it has the pre-LCI taillights, and you want to do you want to get LCI taillights, which personally I think look way better. You can't just buy E92 LCI taillights, even though they look identical. Somehow they don't fit in the E93s, which is kind of crazy. So in that case, your best bet in that instance would be to probably try to find OEM ones, which that in itself is going to be usually pretty expensive and also maybe a headache. Another example about parts for E93s, which this one won't apply to most people, but any brand name wide body company don't make wide body kits for E93s. There's probably a few companies that will do it here and there, but they're probably going to be a good deal more expensive because it's more pieces. And yeah, sure, you can get an E92 wide body kit and modify it to fit your E93, but that's going to take a lot of time and dedication, and most people probably wouldn't want to go through with that. Even some exhausts made for these cars won't fit an E93, especially without modifying the exhaust or removing rear chassis supports on the E93s, which that info in itself I think will probably cause people to steer away from the E93s and more towards an E90 or an E92. And lastly, about the E93s, I'm sure you all know, you've definitely seen an E92 on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and they have a carbon trunk. I have a forged carbon trunk. Carbon trunks do not fit on E93s because they're designed in an entirely different way. The top of the trunk will lift up for the top to go down in it. I'm sure there's companies that make them, but they're definitely going to be pricey and may not fit as advertised due to not a lot of people purchasing them. I mean, really, why would a company make a carbon trunk for E93s when you can just make them for E92s and E90s, the same exact trunk, and sell multitudes of them versus, let's say there's 5 guys that want trunks for their E93s. It's not really going to be worth it compared to hundreds, if not thousands of people wanting carbon trunks for their E90s or E92s, which are the same exact trunk. These cars depreciate so fast, like so fast. 335s and 335 ISs, yeah, it's just been down just the whole time. Just show one of them graphs and it's just like stonks and it's just, downhill. I can remember a little over a year after I purchased this car, I got an email from Kelley Blue Book saying that the value of my car was worth $8K, which was surprising considering that was less than what my loan on my car was for. And now when I look at Kelley Blue Book on this car, it's just sad. And even after all this money that I've religiously dumped into this car, it doesn't give value to the car unless I plan on selling this car to someone who is looking for this exact same setup, 335. So the resale value and especially the trade-in value on these cars take a big hit, especially over time. The fifth and final thing I want you to know about BMW 335s before you yourself buy one is the extremely high tuning potential. These cars come from factory with 300 horsepower and 300 torque, unless you buy a 335 IS, like mine for example. Those have 320 horsepower and 370 foot-pounds of torque due to an overboost function that lasts, I think, 7 seconds. And as this is the first car that I've built, I'll be entirely honest. When I first bought this car, I knew nothing about modifying cars. I just knew what I liked. I was planning on maybe, eventually wrapping this thing, putting on maybe some coilovers, some good looking wheels. I wasn't planning on getting as far as I have gotten with this car, honestly. When I first bought this car, I didn't even know what all of the full bolt-ons for this car were or what they did. I knew absolutely nothing about the M54 platform except for that my mom had owned one and her car was an absolute piece of shit. She had that thing for 6 weeks and it blew up. And for some reason, I still wanted one. I don't know. Little did I know, with just a few modifications, maybe some E85 and an off-the-shelf tune, this car could be making 450 horsepower to the wheels, which for a kid that's never really been into cars before this, that's a lot of horsepower. I mean, most of the time, any car that you meet on the street on a day-to-day basis, they're getting gapped. And the crazy thing is that 450 horsepower is nowhere near the limits of what this car can take. You could make even more horsepower if you went with upgraded turbos let's say upgraded twins or a big single turbo. The first modification I did on this car was an aluminum charge pipe, catless downpipes, and a blow-off valve. The whole reason this all started was about a month after I bought this car, the factory charge pipe exploded. And a lot of my friends were telling me like, dude, you're already doing that. You're already getting a charge pipe and a blow-off valve. You may as well do catless downpipes. And so I thought about it and I was like, yeah, might as well. So that's exactly what I did. Little did I know what that would eventually spiral into. And also little did I know how loud this car was going to be. I didn't know that the secondary cats were deleted on this car. And yeah, I mean, it was like ear-piercing loud. The funny thing is that I actually never was planning on tuning this car. You know, I had people ask me, people I was friends with, like, dude, like, when are you gonna tune it and like start racing? And I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna tune it soon. But like, in the back of my mind, like, I'd never planned on tuning this car or doing any of the stuff I've done with it. But it was shortly after I installed those first modifications, it was like I got bit by a bug. I was just fascinated with the stuff that I could do to this car, and it gave me goals to have for this car. Two of my main goals for this car was for it to eventually be single turboed and for it to also be bagged. And as you can see, both are done. So there is still a good bit of stuff I do plan on doing to this car, just not right now. For any of the younger generation wanting to purchase one of these cars, I really hope I inspire you to do so, but I also want you to be careful. Even stock with these cars having 300 horsepower and 300 torque, that's still a good bit of power for someone that's inexperienced. And you never know if maybe you're going around a corner too fast and the rear end decides to kick out. Then you're without a car or without your life. I would say if I had any advice for you guys, it would be to take your time, learn how your car reacts, and get used to the current power it has. And then once you feel pretty comfortable with it, you can, tune it, do some bolt-ons, and then, go from there gradually. Me personally, I don't think you should be purchasing one of these cars at the age of 16 and then immediately putting it on upgraded twin turbos you got from eBay and full E85, because that's just a recipe for disaster. Once you do power mods in a tune, it is essential that you get used to your car and know how it reacts. Because at the end of the day, even with 400 horsepower, you're outrunning basically any car you meet on the road. And in a rear-wheel drive car that makes 400 horsepower for someone inexperienced, it could end pretty badly. Basically what I'm saying is increase the power gradually as you get more comfortable with it, because these cars can get very dangerous very fast. So just take your time and get comfortable with it. And guys, that's gonna be the 5 things I want you to know before buying your first BMW 335. If there's any 335 owners that are watching this video, please go down into the comments and just tell me something that you wish you had known before buying one of these cars. I'd really appreciate to hear what you guys have to say. I just want to say, if you watched the video, thank you so much. It really means a lot. And also, if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thanks guys, and I'll see y'all later.